Back to Tartarian Tales number 84, and I've got an interesting one today. It's a pretty cool little story that I think you all are going to like. You may not, but I think you will, because I found it pretty interesting. It's kind of more just like a little antidote, but very, very cool. And I have a feeling Tartarians were known for this kind of stuff, like these different legendary things and stories and tales and folk tales that I think were passed down, and probably some of the oldest ones known to man, really, or that have survived. Because these people, again, similar to the Native Americans, if they're nomads, I have a feeling most of their storytelling was done in person, orally, and those stories tend to stay pretty amazingly accurate because they're repeated over and over, and they're taught to young kids, and they grow, and people learn with them. And stories like this and myths, I wouldn't even be surprised if the ancient Tartarians and those before them were the discoverers of the myths, and if we've attributed them to all the wrong people, who knows? But either way, this is from the Kenosha Telegraph, November 6th, 1873. And so it's a very interesting story called the Dervice's Advice. The Dervise is advice. So very interesting story here. A cool little tale. I want to read it here and then see what you all think. So here we go. Lady Mary Wortley Montague relates the following story. One day, as an ancient king of Tartary was riding with his officers of state, they met a dervice crying aloud, "To him that will give me 100 dinars, small pieces of money, I will give a piece of good advice." The king, attracted by this strange declaration, stopped and said to the dervish, "What advice is this you offer for 100 dinars?" "Sire," replied the dervish, "I shall be most thankful to tell you as soon as you order the money to be paid me." The king, expecting to hear something extraordinary, ordered the dinars to be given to the dervish at once, on receiving which he said, "Sire, my advice is, begin nothing without considering what the end may be." The officers of state, smiling at what they thought ridiculous advice, looked at the king, who they expected would be so enraged at this insult as to order the dervish to be severely punished. The king, seeing their amusement and surprise, said, "I see nothing to laugh at in the advice of this dervish, but on the contrary, I am persuaded that if it were more frequently practiced, men would escape many calamities. Indeed, so convinced am I of the wisdom of this maxim, that I shall have it engraved on my plate and written on the walls of my palace, so that it may be ever before me." The king, having thanked the dervish, proceeded toward his palace, and on his arrival he ordered the chief bey to see that the maxim was engraved on his plate and on the walls of his palace. Sometime after this occurrence, one of the nobles of the court, a proud, ambitious man, resolved to destroy the king and place himself on the throne. In order to accomplish his said purpose, he secured the confidence of one of the king's surgeons, to whom he gave a poisoned lancet, saying, "If you will bleed the king with this lancet, I will give you 10,000 pieces of gold, and when I ascend the throne, you shall be my vizier." The base surgeon, dazzled by such brilliant prospects, wickedly assented the proposal. An opportunity of effecting his evil design soon occurred. The king sent for this man to bleed him. He put the poisoned lancet into a side pocket and hastened into the king's presence. The arm was tied, and the fatal lances were about to be plunged into the vein, when suddenly the surgeon's eyes read this maxim at the bottom of the basin: "Begin nothing without considering what the end may be." He immediately paused, as he thought within himself, "If I bleed the king with this lancet, he will die, and I shall be seized and put to a cruel death. Then of what use will all the gold in the world be to me?" Then, returning the lancet to his pocket, he drew forth another. The king, observing this, and perceiving that he was much embarrassed, asked why he changed his lancet so suddenly. He states that the point was broken, but the king, doubting his statement, commanded him to show it. This so agitated him that the king felt assured that all was not right. He said, "There is treachery in this. Tell me instantly what it means, or your head shall be severed from your body." The surgeon, trembled with fear, promised to relate all to the king, if he would only pardon his guilt. The king consented, and the surgeon related the whole matter, acknowledging that had it not been for the words in the basin, he should have used the fatal lancet. The king summoned his court and ordered the traitor to be executed. Then, turning to his officers of state, he said, "You now see that the advice of the dervish, at which you laughed, is most valuable. It has saved my life. Search out this dervish, that I may amply reward him for his wise maxim." So again, very cool, and I'm not sure if it's true or false, but it is timeless in some way. I mean, that quote right there is absolutely a quote that should be used by all of us, and it should be thought of before everything. So this is again wise wisdom from these Tartarians, who so many people out there, whether they're trolls on the internet or people that just don't care or don't get it, or are so wrapped up in the history that they've been propagandized with that they just can't see anything beyond it, kind of like the Globies. Those people just they don't get it, and they don't see they think again that because a few Tartars were nomads that the whole everything was. But as you dive deeper into the Tartar religion and these Tartarian people and these Tartarian tales end up showing you this, that there was absolutely the most astounding royalty. And when people think of Genghis Khan and all these things and Mongols, they're like, yeah, blah blah blah. They're like, oh, they're just Mongols. They're like nomads roaming around in tents and stuff. But could people so weak and so kind of belittled like that end up taking over the entire continent and half of the world and all this stuff and being worshipped and having these jewels and amazing architecture and all over the place? Is that done by nomads and by a weak population? Because it doesn't seem like it to me. So much of these Tartarians seem to be almost the founders of royalty, the founders of like military style adventure or just fortifications or procedural kind of methods and all these different things. They might be the lawmakers. They could be all of these things. So much of what we get could come from these ancient people that our people in power have completely neglected and whatever, in order to spiritually destroy us. And they take from it and they put a whole new false origin story about all of these things and all of these folk traditions that could have started in wherever. It's the same with everything. The sacred texts, anything that they can use to their advantage, they did, and they changed the history and the truth surrounding anything that they can use and in order to subjugate the people. And it's been done since the dawn of time, and it always has been. And these ancient Tartarians, I wonder if they're still connected, if there's still an weird connection in the the high rankings of our today's modern New World Order controllers. It could be, everything could be a charade, lead the people this way, let the people believe this, while the reality is this. And again, beyond the poles in the other realm where the masterminds are, is probably where all these strings are being pulled from. But again, who knows? All I know is that everything I read about the Tartarians, I seem to find very interesting. And again, people that are hated and just like trounced upon by history and by all these different media people and people that I personally don't trust or like, they all by their attitudes and their like sternness about these people are blah blah blah, makes you immediately think the opposite and have to think the opposite. And then just once you dive in and you start seeing for yourself, you realize, wow, these people are amazing. And you look at the clothing. I mean, even just the clothing aspects. Look at what we wear today, like our cotton T-shirts or a little blah 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 blah. And then look at the clothes they had back in these times, back in these days when they were making amazing buildings, when they were doing incredible things that we have no idea about. They were going on adventures. They were surviving the wilds of places that we would just curl up into a ball and cry in. So many things these ancient people were capable of that we are not in our pampered society. And you have to give them credit, and you have to wonder who originated all of it, and even who was the founders of their civilizations and the people that they learned from, because it just keeps going back. And then once inevitably you get to a point where it's all lost. It is all lost, and it's just the way it is, and I guess we have to deal with it. But there is hope, and I do believe that the art and the controllers and the elite and in the private collections and the people beyond the realms, that somewhere in the libraries or somewhere the answers do exist. So again, stay patient. They will come. Until then, keep piecing the pieces together. We are getting closer and closer to this ultimate vision of what reality should be, and we then have to initiate it in reality with the people here by making them understand how much better it would be to live in a society like these, as opposed to the just debauchery that we become accustomed to. We've got to purify this place, mind, body, and soul, and get people onto the path of truth and ultimate reality, which will strengthen everyone and make us capable of getting back there. If we have the motivation, we have the will, and we have the power in our genetics, we will do it if given the right moment, the right inspiration, and the right state of our world. So let's get there. And again, thank you all. artofdino.com, Tartarian Tales. I hope you enjoyed this. Share it with whoever. Bless you all.